Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to open 6 packs of Throne of Eldraine and build a sealed deck out of them. I have my 6 packs here. We'll go ahead and get going. Pack 1 has a Bargain, a Garenbrig Paladin, a Tempting Witch, Raging Redcap, Silverflame Squire, Eye Collector, Prophet of the Peak, Tall as a Beanstalk, Wishing Well, Fairy Guide Mother, Claim the Firstborn, Venerable Knight, Edgewall Innkeeper, Folio of Fancies, an island and a food token. Pack 2 has a Searing Barrage, a Marrowleaf Rider, a Barrow Witches, Weaselback Redcap, Corridor Monitor, Bartered Cow, a Scalding Cauldron, a Giant Skewer, a Wildwood Tracker, Runaway Together, Ferocity of the Wilds, Sir Eleonora the Discerning, Drown in the Loch, Castle Embereth, Swamp, and a food token. Pack 3 opens with, looks like some weird backwards pack, but we have a human token, a Swamp, a Castle Vantress, Lucky Clover, Epic Downfall, Giant Opportunity, Mystic Sanctuary, Bake into a Pie, Lost Legion, Rose Thorn Acolyte, Bargain, Witch's Cottage, Fell the Pheasant, Mantle of Tides, and Lonesome Unicorn, and Blow Your House Down. Pack 4 also appears to follow the weird alternate sorting. We have a tip card, a Forest, a Faeborough Elder, Rankle, Master of Pranks. Is this a foil? Oh, it is a foil. It is a very subtle foil. You can barely tell. And Rankle, which is ridiculous. An Oakhome Ranger, Covetous Urge, Shambling Suit, Malevolent Noble, Barrow Witches, Garenbrig Carver, Return to Nature, Thrill of Possibilities, Weapon Rack, Wishful Merfolk, True Love's Kiss, Wildwood Tracker. Pack 5. Back to the normal distribution, we have a Mistford River Turtle, a Weaselback Redcap, a Fairy Guide Mother, Queen of Ice, Malevolent Noble, Fierce Witch Stalker, Jousting Dummy, Scorching Dragonfire, Wildwood Tracker, Giant Opportunity, Steelclaw Lance, an Inspiring Veteran, another Castle Embereth, a Foil Deathless Knight, a Plains and an Adventure card. The final pack starts with the Rimrock Knight, an Outflank, Didn't Say Please, Festive Funeral, Curious Pair, Ardenvale Tactician, Knight of the Keep, Unexplained Vision, Signpost Scarecrow, Deafening Silence, Kenrith's Transformation, Cauldron's Gift, Stormfist Crusader, Memory Theft in foil, a mountain, and a human token. We have a lot of cards here, and now we're going to see which of these decks we can actually build here. We have multiple multicolor cards here, and we have Rankle here, which makes me want to play black, and some decent cards in red, and the numbers are really high. We also have lots of multiples of these multicolor cards, so maybe we can make one of them work out as well. So we'll go ahead and take a look at each color separately. White has Deafening Silence, which I probably don't want to play except out of the sideboard, and even then it's kind of limited to very specific situations. Knight of the Keep, which is not that great. Ardenvale Tactician is good. Outflank can be good, but it really is dependent on the type of deck that we end up with. Fairy Guide Mother I do like. True Love's Kiss, which is a sideboard card. Lonesome Unicorn, which can be good. Bartered Cow is not amazing, but it's, I guess, better than Knight of the Keep. Venerable Knight is decent in an aggressive deck. Another Fairy Guide Mother. A Silverflame Squire, which is okay. It's not an amazing card, but it does 2 things on one body, and that's okay. So white doesn't look to be the strongest. We have, with white, we have the green Selesnya cards as well as Inspiring Veteran, so that's something to keep in mind. Blue has Unexplained Vision, draws 3 cards. It's not terrible, even though it's a bit slow. Didn't Say Please, which is an alright counterspell. Queen of Ice, which is an okay blocker, I guess. Mistford River Turtle, which I do not love. Wishful Merfolk, which is also not great. I guess it's like Queen of Ice, a bit of a defender. And then we have the Mantle of Tides, which is good in the draw the second card deck. And just about that. I don't know that we're there yet. Mystic Sanctuary is okay. It gets you a card back from your graveyard to replay it. So that's a maybe. Castle Vantress is pretty good. I think if you're playing blue, that would be good to play. Sir Eleonora is also pretty good. Runaway Together is just okay. I think it sort of depends on the cards you have, and if you want to re-trigger effects. We have a Corridor Monitor, which is also just okay, and it's best if you have repeatable tap triggers that you want to trigger with the Corridor Monitor. We have the Folio of Fancies, which is kind of a game winner by itself, and a Witching Well, which I also like pretty decently as far as card draw goes. So there's a lot of utility in blue and some pretty strong cards in the mix, although it's not a very deep color here. With blue, we'll also be getting access to Drown in the Loch and Covetous Urge, which are both pretty good uncommons. Black has a Memory Theft, which is not great. I guess if something that you want to put into the sideboard. We have Cauldron's Gift, which is a way to get a creature back from your graveyard. That's okay. Festive Funeral, it is a removal spell. Not a great one, but it is one. And it gets better in the late game. We have Malevolent Noble, which can be okay if you have a lot of artifacts. And it does work at instant speed, so there is something there, and I'm not going to discount that. We have Barrow Witches, which returns knights from your graveyard to your hand. It's fine if you've got a lot of knights. Malevolent Noble, we've talked about that. Wrinkle Master of Pranks is a boss, a beating, a 4-mana 3/3 with flying and haste, and has abilities upon combat damage, so that's really good. And then Witch's Cottage gets you creatures back from your graveyard, which could include the Wrinkle. That also works well with the Malevolent Nobles in terms of getting your stuff back. It's not amazing, but it's still not a bad choice here. Lost Legion is a knight, and it also can scry. That's not the worst, but it's also not terribly exciting. Bake into a Pie is a full-on removal spell at instant speed for 4 mana. I think that is a high choice to pick. And so is Epic Downfall, which is a removal spell as well. So that makes black very desirable here. I mean, Rankle makes black very desirable in itself. Giant Skewer is just okay. I think if you are in the food deck, that is something to consider, but we're not necessarily there. We have more Barrow Witches. Eye Collector is not really what we're looking to do, but it can do something, I guess. So as an attacker, I'm not high on it, but maybe there's a reason to play it. The Tempting Witch, I think, is okay. It creates food, it blocks, and you can sacrifice it to do some extra damage if you have food. I think that's the deck that you want to put that in. So that is black. Black has a high reason to play. And on top of that, we have 2 different color pairs. We have the Deathless Knight in the food color pair, and then the Rakdos color pair offers a Stormfist Crusader and a Steelclaw Lance. This is better on knights, and so that's something to keep in mind as well. For red, we have a Rimrock Knight, which is fine for an aggressive card if that's what you're looking to do. Castle Embereth can be good in an aggressive deck. And then Scorching Dragonfire is a removal spell. We like that. Red Cap is fine if you are playing a Knight's deck. Thrill of Possibility is a way to redraw cards. It's not great in most of the decks, but in the draw 2 cards per round deck, it is good. Blow Your House Down is only good in a very aggressive deck. I wouldn't play that in most cases. Barge In is better in those aggressive decks. We have another Castle Embereth, so we could double the Emberething. And then Frosty to the Wild could get your non-humans extra damage in, but I'm not sure if that deck exists in this particular pack, so we'll put that near the back here. We have Weaselback Red Cap. Searing Barrage is another removal spell. We have Claim the Firstborn, which is not great unless you have ways to sack creatures. We do if we mix this with black, so this is something to consider. A Raging Red Cap, which is a fine creature, I guess. And if you equip it, it gets much stronger, and we have a Barge In. So not thick on creatures, but a lot of decent effects here. And Again, red gives us access to the Inspiring Veteran and to the Stormfist Crusader and Steelclaw Lance, and maybe that's something we might want to do. Try to play like a 3-color deck if we have the fixing for it. I don't know that we do, so that is something to keep paying attention to here. In green, we have Chemist Transformation. It's not a great removal spell, but it's kind of a removal spell. We have the Curious Pair, which is fine if you're playing the food deck. Giant Opportunity is fine, also if you're playing the food deck. We have a Wildwood Tracker, which is fine if you're playing an aggressive green deck, but that's not necessarily what we're doing. We'll find out. The Fierce Witch Stalker, which is a decent body and also creates food, so nice and powerful. I definitely like that. It's probably the strongest of the food deck cards. In common, we have Return to Nature, which is strictly sideboard. Garenbrig Carver, which is just generally fine for a mid-level card, not a high pick, but not a bad one. This is Fell the Pheasant, is also a sideboard card that deals with flying cards. Rosethorn Acolyte is a way to play multiple colors and ramp yourself. It's not a bad card, especially if you are looking to play towards something big. Another Giant Opportunity, which increases the desire to play food. We have another Wildwood Tracker. A Merrily Fighter, which is a food payoff of sorts. You can force the trade. It's not great, but it is a payoff, I guess. And an Edgewall Innkeeper, which is great if you're playing an adventure deck. I don't know if we have enough adventures to do this. We could do it if we're playing green-white, I guess. And that's something to pay attention to here. We have Tall as a Beanstalk, and that's kind of not a great card. And Garenbrig Paladin, which I think is a decent card, especially if you can get the Adamant going. And that is green. In terms of artifacts that we can do supporting, we can use the Signpost Scarecrow to fix and ramp. Jousting Dummy works if we need extra knights. Weapon Rack just generally sucks. The Shambling Suit is fine if you're playing artifacts and enchantments. I don't know that we have enough, so we'll put this down here. If we're playing adventure, again, the Lucky Clover is really good, but you have to be doing that. Scalding Cauldron is good if we don't have any removal, so if we're playing white, blue, or green, it's something that we really should be considering. And Prophet of the Peak is just a very expensive card. Sometimes this is what you need, but hopefully we will not be needing it. And then in multicolor we have the Oakham Ranger, which is a pretty strong card if you can get it going, and the Fabro Elder, which is good if you're playing a lot of colors. I don't know that that is what we're doing here, and we would want to play 3 or 4 colors for this to be particularly good. But it does fix, and so there is that as well. Inspiring Veteran is good in Knights. Deathless Knight is good in food. And these are just generally good cards in Knights decks. And this is generally good cards in control decks. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to sort of focus around these color pairs, since these are strong cards, and see what we can put together. We'll go ahead and start with red and black, because those do seem like our strongest colors, followed by blue and green. And white seems like the weakest color. So let's build a red and black deck and see what it looks like. So we have kind of the workings of a Knights deck here. Tons of removal, but kind of low on creatures. And so I'm wondering if this deck is even a possible choice here. When we were talking about kind of low on creatures, we have, what, 13 creatures? That's not a lot. And we have a lot of spells, and so I don't know that you can be as aggressive as you want to be with this very low number of creatures. And so perhaps this deck is not going to make a cut. I mean, having all this removal may make it worthwhile, but cards like Steelclaw Lance are less good when you don't have a lot of creatures to wield it, and then we don't have a ton of creatures to wield it. We could use the Malevolent Nobles to claim the Firstborn and then use it to power up the Malevolent Nobles. That's not bad. The aggression does suit the Bargains fairly well, but we do also have to pay attention to the number of non-humans that we have, and we do have a decent number of humans in the mixed here, with the 2 Malevolent Nobles, the Stormfist Crusader, the Tempting Witch, and the 2 Barrel Witches all being humans. That is almost half the cards being humans, and that does make the non-human stuff not as strong here. Black seems a little bit stronger than red, but you know, if we had more creatures, Castle Embereth could do a thing. Now, we could add more cards in the form of maybe a Jousting Dummy to add to the Knights count, because that's what we want for the Barrow Witches to be good. We need a lot of Knights, and we currently have A 7, which actually isn't bad. I don't know if Barrel Witch is good enough to play with 7, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And then we could put in, say, a Signpost Scarecrow if we wanted just a little bit more bulk and a little bit more bodies. And to fix, it's possible that maybe we can even splash some white into this mix. If we are splashing white, then what are we splashing here? We would splash maybe a Venerable Knight or Silver Flame Squire. These are not cards that I really want to splash for if we're just splashing pure white. Alternatively, we could splash in the Inspiring Veteran, which would work well with the knights that we have, and then splash using the Signpost Scarecrow as a way of getting in some white fixing. It seems a little bit stronger just because there are actually a decent number of knights here. And then what would we cut? We cut the Thrill of Possibility. We cut Blow Your House Down. We also have a fairly lower curve. I guess we do have a good number of spells that are expensive here. We will probably cut Ferocity of the Wilds just because there's a mix of humans and non-humans in here. And Memory Theft is more of a sideboard card anyway, so we would cut that. We could cut the Eye Collector because it's not doing a whole lot in this particular deck. We could probably just make 2 more cuts. This is a fairly aggressive deck. Giant Skewer is what is making the Raging Red Cap good. Those are ways of powering up our cards here. But it might just be weak enough that we don't want it, just because if its expense is not terribly good. And then probably 1 more cut, and I think it would be the Festive Funeral or a Barrel Witches, but I think getting the Knights back is probably good enough, so we'll cut 1 Festive Funeral and keep the Cauldron's Gift as a way of getting back like Rankle or something else particularly good. And this would be the red-black deck, and I think it's pretty strong. I think it is pretty strong. Let's go ahead and take this apart and then try a red-white deck using the Inspiring Veteran as the core here. Okay, this is already not something that we want to play, so we're just going to forego red-white as an opportunity. We would have to splash in black to make this worthwhile. It does have the right curve, but the power is so low compared to what you get with red-black. Now we're going to try white-green. Alright, again, this is another fairly aggressive list. There isn't any removal outside the outflank, which is not the kind of removal that we want. There is enough non-humans to power up the Wildwood Trackers, and maybe this is a deck that could just get there on being very quick and low to the ground. But it is very short on cards. Like, we're basically playing everything that isn't a real obvious sideboard card to make this work. Is it as good as red-black? I don't think so. I think that the lack of removal kind of limits this. It would be fine if, this is all that we had to play. And the Faber Elder really isn't cutting it either, especially since we're ramping into kind of nothing here. Now, there's not enough food generation for the giant opportunities to be good, and so I think that this deck is not going to make the cut here. But as long as we're at it, we'll go ahead and take a look at green and black. This seems a little bit more even of a deck. There's not a lot of food options here, and the non-human synergies are not very strong either. And so I think that green and black is not necessarily the best combination here. I think there's a potential here, but I don't think it falls a little bit short of good enough. So we will not be playing green and black, and our final color combination we're going to try here is black and blue, because blue was interesting to me, but it was a little too thin to support itself. So there are some strong cards here. In the Covetous Surge and the Drawn and the Lock in particular, and the Folio of Fancy is really adding to the capacity of this deck. But it is a little bit unwieldy and a little bit uneven and a bit slow and doesn't have a ton of defenses to hold itself together. I think the cards are really screaming for this to be the red-black deck that we originally found. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to break this down and we'll rebuild the red-black deck. We're splashing white again for the Inspiring Veteran, and I think we're actually going to pitch Cauldron's Gift instead of the Festive Funeral, because I think more removal in general is better than getting a card back, even if it comes with a +1/+1 counter on it. The only card that we're really looking to get back is the Rankle. Everything else here is a bit on the weaker side, so really wanting to cut a 5-drop, and I think getting rid of that may be a little bit stronger in this case. So this is 24 cards, plus 3 lands, taking us to 27. And so for this deck, we would want 16 total lands. We have 11 red, 15 black, and 1 white. In which case, we would want 8 black sources. The Witch's Cottage would count as 1, so that's 7 swamps. 7 red sources, so that is 5 more mountains in addition to the Castle Embereths. And 1 white source for the Inspiring Veteran, which combined with the Signpost Scarecrow will get us to basically 2 white sources. We only have 1 in the deck, so we're hoping that we don't have to draw it most of the time. And that will take us to the total of 40 cards. Here are the lands. Let me know what your thoughts were about this deck build. If you would have done it differently, let me know in the comments below so that I can learn from your wisdom. What do you think of the opens? I think that it's kind of fun to have these Castle Embereths joining the crowd here, and this is a lot of removal, so I think I'm happy with this deck. I do wish it were just a little bit more aggressive, but sometimes this is all you can get. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.